It has been nearly 3 weeks since my wife and I exchanged living in our apartment for our Nissan Altima. Making home wherever we park it, such as Walmart's, gas stations, or just any parking lot without a no parking sign. Switching to this new lifestyle has not been easy, but we are getting used to it.
You know what this reminds me of? Jeffersons. But the flip side, I know this might age me quite a bit, but it's okay. But if you remember, if you've been around for some time like me, the Jeffersons, and let me just show you what I mean by when I say this kind of reminds me of the Jeffersons on the flip side, but I'm gonna tell you why I said that. But take a look at this brief clip from the Jeffersons, and you will begin to see what I'm about to talk about. Let's watch this together.
Well, we're moving on now. We're moving on up to the east side, to a deluxe apartment in the sky. Moving on up to the east side. We finally got a piece of the pie.
So at least they were moving up on a to a deluxe apartment in the sky, right? While this couple, they had a deluxe window covers and gym memberships, as you'll see more in a moment. This couple is moving on down, right? They're moving on down right into their car, right? Would you agree? Oh, you might say that they're moving all right, right? They're moving all right, as we have just established. Most people exchange rings after their I do, not an apartment or real estate for roadside parking. And just in case you're wondering, yes, this is real. It's not a movie in the making, even though the way that some couples tend to live their lives in the open, you would think they're auditioning for the next big blockbuster movie. But my friends, this is marriage. But sadly, this is becoming a trend. So let's talk about why this is concerning and what it reveals about modern marriages, identity, and misplaced expectations. We're going to unpack that in this video. Now, if this is your first time here and you're wondering who this is, I'm Kingsley Grant, a licensed marriage and family therapist, a certified relationship coach, and host of the Build Your Happier Marriage podcast. And today we're diving into what seems like an adventure, but may actually be a detour from God's best. You know, I think I'm very well positioned to talk about this from the standpoint in which you're going to hear me today, because not just because of my own personal experience being married since 1985, 40 years, but also because of my professional experience. So today we're going to explore why how you start matters. We're also going to explore what a husband is truly called to provide. And you're going to see it's not this, okay? And we're also going to explore what this means for Christian wives of entrepreneurial husbands. So stick around to hear how to grab your free booklet after you've watched this, The Reconnect, a quick guide for wives who will feel like they're doing it all. And I'll tell you more about the Joyful Marriage Quest as well, a 6-week biblical and evidence-based coaching journey. So if you're new here, hit subscribe and like this video. And as I go along, if you have a thought or a comment, please drop that in the comments below. I would love to hear you and get into a conversation, right, about what it is you're thinking. So let's continue to see what this couple has to say about how they spend their nights and how it is going. Let's watch.
We usually stay at Walmarts or gas stations because they have cameras, security, and they are always well lit up by lights. We start out by moving everything from the back to the front passenger seat because we like to leave the front driver's seat open in case of an emergency or if we just have to move to a new spot. Then we will start out by putting our window covers on so that we have privacy and a sense of stealthness. Tonight we went to the gas station so that we could work on content for a while. Then after that we went to the car to grab our toothbrushes, skincare, and anything to get ready for bed. After that we got settled into the car for the night, and we usually end the night by watching something on YouTube or any type of TV show. And
Let's be honest. Where you live speaks volumes, right, about the foundation you're building. Now, I know in some countries and some parts of the world, I know it's kind of hard to make this statement because it is a understood situation for some parts of the world. So if you're watching from some part of the world that you're saying, Kingsley, you don't understand, we just don't have a choice, and I get it. But in general, how you live speak speaks volumes, right, about the foundation. If your answer to a question is asked, where do you live? And your answer is aisle 5 near automotive, that's a red flag. That's a red flag. How can this be normal? How can someone take pride in this just for what? Clicks? Views? You know, as a man, I would be embarrassed. I mean, I'd be embarrassed to even want to share this publicly, right? And talk about this, how I'm living my life with my wife after just getting married to her. I would be ashamed. Now, you might say, Kingsley, aren't you judging here? Yeah, yeah, maybe I am. But you're gonna see why I'm saying these things as I go on. See, I could understand if you have your principal residence and doing some stunt like this for a documentary and or an experiment. But to make this is where we're living? Are you kidding me? I mean, if this was my daughter, let me ask you, if this was your daughter, I, you know, I don't know why I would not say my son, but I think, I want to make sure that a man is to take care of a wife, a woman. So this was my daughter, I would be beside myself. How about you? Actually, this is why before someone asks for my blessings to marry my daughter, this better not be the plan. I can assure you this better not be the plan. No, sirree, Bob, it better not be. And so maybe I ask a question, and he may say to me, "Oh, sir, I plan to get married and then live in my car until we can afford to get a van, and then we see what happens from there." Are you kidding me? Not going to happen. Not gonna happen. I'm not gonna give my blessing to that. Would you? Would you? These are some really, but I believe a marriage is a sacred thing. It's important to recognize what this institution means. It's not just something you kind of play around with and you experiment with. There are guidelines to what a marriage should look like. Now, I know we're living in different times and how when got married and what it meant to be married. But is it any wonder marriage is really losing the effect, the impact, what it's supposed to have? So, as I said, it's not going to happen. Now, obviously, when you choose to live this way, there's some things you're going to have to deal with, right? You're going to have to learn how to adjust like you do in any marriage. But is it something that you have to put yourself in or you adjust as it comes? Well, let's hear from them how this adjustment they're making that they chose is going. Let's watch.
to this new lifestyle has not been easy, but we are getting used to it. We have faced many obstacles such as a lot of rain, a heat wave, constantly being on the move, no AC, and just overall downsizing our living space.
No kidding, right? You're newlyweds in a metal box on wheels with no privacy, no plans. Well, I can't say no plans. We're going to see they have a plan, but we'll see what the plan is in a few moments. And no pantry. Don't get me wrong, right? Adjustment along the way in marriage is a necessity. It's important. Marriage is not a straight line, as some of you have found out, regardless of what you might have thought or heard. It's not a straight line, right? It's up and down and up and down. And I've had that in my own marriage since 1985. Lots of adjustments have had to be made both by my wife and me. You make adjustments as they come and try to not create unnecessary situations. As it is, you're going to have them. Why go and look for it and create it? That requires adjustment. You just don't go looking for those things, right? Would you agree? Again, I'd love to hear your thoughts if I'm the only one who's thinking this way. So, what about other questions that are now raised when it comes up about where you live? How do you answer? How do you navigate those things? Well, let's hear in their own words how they're navigating, let's say, what you would consider to be a daily routine. Let's watch what they are now kind of putting themselves into the situation. Let's watch this together.
A lot of you ask about how we shower, so we have a gym membership that is open 24/7, so it makes it really easy for us to get a workout in, then shower before bed. Once we finish, we headed to a park that we're going to stay at tonight.
Oh, thank God they have a 24-hour, 24/7 gym membership, right? Eh, This is a reason for a pause, wouldn't you say? Your marriage bathroom is now a life fitness locker room. Nothing says sexy newlywed life like waiting in line to rinse off beside a sweaty stranger named Bert or Bertina, right? And then crawling into your car in a parking lot to get some sleep. Wow, so sexy. Such something that everybody is chomping at the bits to have, I would imagine. I have so many questions at this point, but I'm going to leave them right here. You might have some as well, and I would love to you to share them. What question comes to your mind even right now? What thoughts are you having even right now? And I'll do my best to add my thoughts to what I hear you share. It'll be interesting to see what is coming up for you right now as you're watching and you're going along with me and you're thinking this through. But at least we do know they are taking care of their hygiene. Awesome. Great job. They're taking care of their hygiene. That's important. I'm serious. It's important, but at least they're taking care of that and they're finding a way to do that. Let me say this. I know there are times in marriage or in marriages where some sacrifices have to be made, but I'm not sure this is one of them. Is it? Do you also think along the same line that I'm thinking? Maybe maybe you're currently struggling because it seems like your marriage is in this holding pattern and you as a wife is getting tired of it. But you want to be that loving and supporting wife, but you're wondering how much longer, dear Lord, how much longer, right? Let me hear from you if that's what you, if that would be your prayer and where you would be. So here's a question I want to have you ponder as you watch this next short clip. How do you build outside relationships with a life like this? How do you do that? Let's watch, and then I would want you to think about that, and I'd love to hear how do you do those things. Let's watch this.
I tried using my new head mount for cool POV shots, but of course my phone was out of focus. We put up our window covers and then moved our bags from the trunk to the passenger seat. Then we were finally able to get in the car and get some rest. That's a typical day of what it's like to live in our car. Are we homeless or are we living rent free? You tell me.
Look, I get it, right? Entrepreneurs take risks, but a godly husband is still called to provide. I mean, any husband, right? But more so a godly husband is more imperative. I think it's imperative that you, as a husband, or your husband, dear wife, provides you with these three, I call them the three S's of every marriage. Every wife needs safety, stability, and security. Would you agree with that? I've, my many years of doing working with couples, And I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of couples and multiply, seriously, hundreds of spouses over the last 2 decades. And I have recognized that what most wives are looking for, and maybe as you're watching this, you're saying you're bowing your head. Yes, you want safety, don't you? What about stability? What about security? Those are high on the priority list of wives that I've worked with and I've helped to navigate this part of their relationship. That doesn't mean luxury, right? Well, if luxury is there, of course you're going to take that, but that's not what it means. But it should at least mean dignity, right? And honestly, it's hard to have a social life or attend small group when you're ducking behind your dashboard to avoid awkward conversations, awkward questions, awkward comments, right? Question like, so how was your night? Oh, okay. So where are you guys living now? Right? You meet that person who you have not seen for quite some time. So where are you guys living now? Or hey, maybe we should come over sometime. Let's plan it. Can you imagine how awkward moments like that would be? So it's just better to stay off the grid so these moments don't occur. Then the question was asked by, as you heard, the husband. He's asked the question, are we homeless or just living rent free? Hey, dear husband, if you have to ask, you already know. This isn't frugality, right? It's not about being frugal. It's fantasy with a filter. Or it could be other things as well, right? Here's what happens. Wives of visionary husbands can get caught in this type of just trust me lifestyle and start feeling emotionally, physically, and spiritually exposed. I've heard the stories so many wives that basically start feeling this way in their own relationship. And one of the reasons why I took the time to write this book, my most recent book called The Joyful Wife, is because I've heard so many times a wife would say, "King, so what about the husband?" Yeah, the husband also sometimes, because the wife is the one I see more often than not. She will show up when he doesn't. And so I wrote this book about the joyful wife, 7 connection skills to better understand your husband, rekindle love, and deepen intimacy. Because why? I find that sometimes you are the one, dear wife, who's left having to navigate this because your husband is so visionary. Sometimes he even is oblivious of what it is you're going through. He's doing his thing and trying to work hard. And I'm not knocking him because I'm one like him. So I'm not knocking him. But sometimes he's so deep in his work, head down and working hard away, he doesn't even recognize what it is you're going through. You're emotional, um, feeling empty and disconnected. And sometimes he's oblivious of that. So for the most part, you're feeling emotionally and physically and spiritually exposed. Some even begin to hide from social circles out of embarrassment or fear of judgment or fear of having to make up stories because they just can't be honest with what's happening in their marriage. So avoidance becomes their survival strategy. Is that what you're experiencing even right now? Who wants to deal with that day in and day out? Now, after all this, and as they continue to live their lives, here's the big announcement. Ready for this? And again, I'm maybe have a smile on my face, but I'm just trying to keep this light because I'm just really in shock to think that a young couple, newly married, would choose this as a way to begin to start their new journey. I guess it's uh, um, honeymoon period, never to forget, right? Never to forget how they started. And my prayer is that it will be such for them. They can look back and have been done something fantastic and tremendous in their lives. But I don't know if that's a ambitious way to go about your life or bring a wife into your world, dear husband. I'm from the old school, and maybe I'm too old school in my thinking. And you can help me here, but that is what how I see it. So here's their big announcement. After being in their car for quite some time, they have this announcement they want to make, and let's hear what that could be. Is it moving on up, upward in the sky to a deluxe apartment, or well, let's hear what they have to say.
After living in our car for over 2 months to save up, we can finally say that we bought a van. This is what it looks like from the front. It is so much bigger than the car. And then this is what it looks like on the inside. We have a lot of our stuff in here just because we've been driving this around. We got all these cool lights. We have a freaking TV in here. So that's gonna be kind of cool if we can use that still. It is so much bigger. And then we'll check out the back. The back opens up. We're probably going to be taking out all of the seats on the middle and in the back and putting in our own little build. We're definitely not able to move into the van quite yet. We still have to fix a couple things mechanically, and we also just want to make sure we get it detailed, completely cleaned out, and make it a lot more comfortable with doing a little build. So we'll still be in the car for a little bit, but we are genuinely just so excited to move into our van.
Pop the champagne. Let's celebrate. As as I made that statement, I think of a song. Again, this might age me, but I think it's worth just mentioning. Do you remember this song? Celebrate good times. Well, let's just kind of see. Here's what happened. They've now popped the champagne. Watch this brief clip here of Celebrate Good Times. Let's watch this.
Let's celebrate. Come on now. Celebrate good times. Come on. Let's celebrate.
This is the moment, right? This is a moment of celebration. Now I know I'm being a bit facetious, but you get the point, right? At least I hope so. And as we showed at the beginning with the Jeffersons, we can now say moving on up to a van is technically an upgrade from an Altima, I guess, right? But in our seriousness, let's zoom out a bit here. Let's have this conversation. A dream is great, but a dream without wise planning, covering, and counsel is a detour, not a destination. Not a destination. And dear wife, your role in something like this, if you feel like your husband is just kind of not doing what he's supposed to do, maybe not, you know, being what you hope a husband should be, and for your sake, you're in this early stage, or maybe for some time you're been supportive and loving and don't want to be seen as a nag or to hear to hear all whatever else you may hear, and you've been going along. But remember this, your role is powerful. One of the things that struck me about this couple is that he said his wife was the one who wanted to do this. And he didn't think it was a good idea at first, but he eventually went along because they had gone on this long road trip in a longer video that I watched, and they had done this trip to test out whether or not it's something that they would enjoy. And from that trip, she said, I guess the idea, what if we choose to live in a vehicle for some time? And of course, he said, I didn't want to go along with that when I thought about all the logistics and all of those different things. I didn't want to. But then I went along with that. I guess what I'm trying to make a point is the power, the influential power of a wife sometimes is beyond what you actually recognize. The scripture says in Proverbs 14, verse 1, the wise woman builds her house, but the foolish tears it down with her own hands. Again, dear wife, you are more influential than you think, because this husband basically is simply saying it's his wife's idea. Remind me of a story in Genesis where God said to Adam and Eve, why did you eat the fruit I told you not to eat? And Adam says, it's that woman, the woman you gave me, right? The woman you gave me, she made me eat it. So this husband is saying, I didn't want to at first, but it's that woman. That wife, she wanted it, and I wanted to, you know, follow that whole statement of a happy wife, a happy life idea. Maybe, I don't know. He didn't say that, but I'm just thinking out loud here. I hear that so often. But my point is that you are very influential, more influential than you think. And that's why I made that very this point in my book that I just showed you, The Joyful Wife. I made this observation that, dear wife, you are the neck that turns the head. So may I just say to you, use that influence to lovingly call your husband to lead in a way that reflects God's heart, not just hustle culture. You don't have to settle for that and torture your soul. God did not intend for that. One of the things I point out, though, is how you can, in the interim, self-care, because you don't want to lose your peace or your joy. So one of the things I made the point of is that you can do this by calling him to lead in a way that reflects God's heart while you maintain a peace and joy in your heart. You know, Paul said it in Philippians 4, verse 11 and 12. He makes this point. He says, I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. But here's the thing, Paul did not marry his tent, right? This couple is acting as if that's a choice they made. Yes, it's a choice they made, but they have made that and that's, oh, we're being content. I, I'm not thinking this what the application of the scripture would be, is it? Marriage was never meant to mirror hardship just for the sake of a story. It wasn't. So, dear wife, if your marriage feels unstable, even if your husband is a visionary entrepreneur, if you feel like you're doing it all and wondering if this is as good as it gets, and praying internally, dear Lord, when? Maybe your heart is failed. Maybe you're overwhelmed and you have not been self-caring, as I indicated earlier, that there is a path to self-care. And I want to say to you, if you're experiencing any of those things, I want you to join my upcoming webinar, How to Reconnect with Your Husband Without Feeling Like You're the Only One Trying. And when you join, I'm gonna give you the link in a few moments. When you join, I want to send you my a booklet called Reconnect, a quick guide for wives who feel like they're doing it all. So if you go to buildyourhappiermarriage.com/waitlist, buildyourhappiermarriage.com/waitlist, you can get this booklet and get on the list, and I can be able to inform you about when this webinar, the next webinar, so you can be actually show up for that. Now, here's a final question that I have, and I'm looking for your comment, your feedback. Has your husband ever asked you to just trust him with a vision that made you uncomfortable? How did you respond? And what did you learn from it? I'd love to hear your answer. And if your husband, if you did ask her and you're watching, I'd love to hear why. Why did you ask her to just trust you? And how had that worked out? So if you have not yet subscribed, make sure you subscribe so you can not miss any of the new videos that are released on this channel, and hit that thumbs up button. Leave your thoughts in the comments. All right. So before you go, I want you to watch this video right here that will help you to live a more joyful and peaceful marriage. Now may God bless you and keep you, and make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. And I'll see you on the next video. God bless. Peace out.